Hi, my name is Jenny McLachlan and I write books for children just like you. In this Roarsome Writing Club video, I'm going to share one of my best tips for creating characters. I'm going to explain how I get to know my characters really well before I begin to write. Then I'm going to set you the challenge so you can create your own characters like Croaky in The Land of Roar or Bones in Dead Good Detectives. To join in, all you need is a pen or pencil, a piece of paper, and a very big imagination. When I meet children who've read my books, it's always the characters they want to talk about. They tell me who their favourite character is and which character they think they're most like. Sometimes they tell me about a character that's really annoyed them, and you might think that I don't like hearing about this, but actually it makes me happy. I want my readers to see my characters as real people and to have strong feelings about them. The fact that children talk about my characters as if they're real tells me I'm getting it right. So, how do I make my characters feel real, even if they're a dragon or a fairy or a ninja wizard? One of my best tips is to really get to know your characters before you start to write. This might be annoying, especially if you've got a great idea for a story in your head and want to get going, but trust me, it's worth it. But how do you get to know someone who doesn't even exist yet? Well, sometimes I make a collage of pictures that tell me all about them, or I have a conversation with them in my head, or I might draw a mind map, or design their bedroom. When I started to write The Land of Roar, Croaky, the villain, didn't have much of a character. He was just bad. But the more I wrote, the more I realised I had to get to know this baddie better. So I made this mind map where I let my imagination run wild, and I made up a whole life for Croaky. Some of the things on this I never shared with the reader, but I needed to know them myself so that I really understood what Croaky was like before I made him talk in the book. Listen to this description of Croaky's room in Return to Roar and see what it tells you about him. Even though the room is dimly lit, we can tell that it's huge and round. We must be at the top of the tallest tower. Shelves line the walls and they're full of Croaky's half-completed projects. One stacked full of scarecrow heads and another is piled up with the featherless bodies of his model crows. They look like skinned clockwork birds. At the bottom of the shelves, I find a jar of button eyes. I take one out and hold it in my hand. A fold of leather forms an eyelid. Croaky's even given it tiny thread eyelashes. I use my finger to make it blink. When I wrote this, I could really imagine Croaky in his room on his own, feeling lonely and angry, painstakingly making one of his models. It helped me understand him, and then I always knew what he would say and do when he came into a scene in the book. Now I've got a challenge for you to help you create a brand new character. I'd like you to make a mind map, just like I did with Croaky. First, you've got to decide roughly who your character will be. It could be anyone or anything, a human, an animal, a mythical creature, a robot, it's up to you. That's the amazing thing about writing. You can make anything happen. But if you do get stuck, here are a few ideas you might like to use. A terrifying, huge ice dragon, a gentle, seal-sized sea dragon, a lazy fairy, a new student who's just arrived at your school, a 200-year-old mermaid. Mermaids are always young, aren't they? But why? It's exciting trying out something different. You could use one of these ideas, make one up yourself, or with the help of your friends, collect a big group of ideas on the board. Don't worry if you choose the same one. I promise they will all be different by the time you've finished. Before you start making a mind map, you might find it helpful to draw or find a few pictures that really help you imagine what your character looks like. I often do this. Here are some of the pictures I did of Stink before I wrote the book, and here's one of Croaky. Sometimes I cut pictures out of magazines, but if I do that, I never use just one picture. I use lots of different ones, and this means my characters will always feel unique. Knowing what a character looks like is a great starting point, but appearance is just a small part of what makes up someone's character. So next, I'd like you to ask yourself some questions like, how does your character move? Who are their friends? One day, your character finds something on the floor that they love. But what is it? What is your character scared of? The more questions you ask, the better you get to know your character. I've made a blank mind map filled with questions that you can fill in if you like. You'll find a link to that down below. Or just make them up yourself. Now start filling in your mind map. This is when you get to make loads of stuff up, and it's so much fun. At this stage, don't worry about spelling or punctuation, not if it slows you down. These things are more important when you're writing your story because then someone else will be reading it. But your mind map is just for you, and your mind needs to be busy inventing and creating things and not worrying about rules. Are you ready? Go! How did you get on? Did you find some parts easier to fill in than others? Did you find yourself using any interesting similes or adjectives? I'm going to read my favourite bits, okay? I described a very small sea dragon, and I said that its eyes were flat and black like pebbles worn down by the sea, and it's got seaweed and barnacles clinging to its pearly scales, and that its voice is echoey like he's speaking from the bottom of a cold, wet cave. I wanted to have a voice because I want him to be able to talk in my story. Now, all my dragon needs is a name, and I think I'm going to call him Lettuce because sea lettuce is a type of seaweed and it suits him. I feel like I'm getting to know Lettuce, and I'm ready to put him in a story. I'm pretty sure I'd know what he'd say or do if I met him when I was swimming in the sea. I hope you're getting to know your character. Isn't it incredible? Just a little while ago, your character didn't exist, and now it does. You're a writing magician. Using just your imagination and a pen and a piece of paper, you've created something brand new. Before you put your character into a story, you might like to check out some of my other Roarsome Writing Club videos, maybe the one where I explain how I add delicious details to my characters. Whatever you do with your creations, remember to let your imaginations run wild.